Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, we had the 97th Eagle Aggie Classic, and it was an exciting event. Great turnout with the crowd, and I was excited about how our guys their approach to the game. We talked about having a thermostat mentality and keep the main thing. Don't get caught up in all the chirpiness and whatever the case was going on. And I thought our guys kept their composure and went on and played football. This is probably the most complete game we played this year in all three phases. I thought defensively, we talked about winning up front. I thought they did an outstanding job holding those guys to 42 yards of rushing. And I thought our back end played, our defensive backs played much better. We limited most of explosive plays, dig up a couple, but I thought we grew up back there in the back end. And offensively, again, talking about up front, um, winning up front. We had 346 yards rushing, which is a big day. And then the big thing I thought was our receivers made plays on the perimeter. And we came away with our routes were much better. We limited the drop passes. And then we made great plays on the 50-50 ball. You see Nassim, Cosby played huge. Chauncey Spikes came up with some big grabs. Rufino came up with some big catches. So it was a team effort, and I thought all three phases finally played complementary football, and that was really good to see.
Talk a little bit about playing a team you haven't really seen before. How challenging does that make it for you?
Well, I like to play non-conference games, and for the same reason, once you see a lot of different ball from outside the conferences, nothing really surprises you. You kind of seen everything. Obviously, with this our first time playing East Texas, so we have a work cut out for us. It's a very physical football team. Their quarterback is very athletic, straight up a dual threat guy, and I think they're loaded in the running back room. Defensively, I think they're active. They have two really good defensive ends, a linebacker that plays downhill, and then I don't know the kid's name. Number two, they got a safety that's all over the field. So we got to definitely make sure we have a hat on him. But this is a good football team. Their record doesn't indicate how good they are. Obviously, playing a very tough schedule, Florida State and SMU and Grambling their place. So this will be their home opener, and I'm sure those guys will be excited, ready to go in front of their home crowd. But we're excited about traveling wherever we play. It doesn't matter to us. It's about ball. So we'll go down about a 2-hour flight, and looking forward to competing against these people.
Can you speak to the way that Walker Harris has played, particularly in the game against A&T, but then also, how what you've seen from him so far? I mean, he's had 300 or well in excess of 300 yards back-to-back weeks.
I mean, he's consistent. And I said that once we play complementary football, offensively as a collective, the sky's the limit. They weren't getting pressure on him. The O-line did a great job in pass pro. And, he stayed upright and stayed clean for most of the day. And then when you have Mosley popping runs, and then you have the receivers making plays on the perimeter, it's tough to defend all that. It's tough. And you can't really load the box because the guys on the perimeter are making plays. And that's what I've been preaching. Once we put this thing together, and I know that we had a very talented receiver core, but we weren't opportunistic. Had a bunch of drops. And this week we cleaned that all up, and you see how explosive we can be. So we put this thing all together, every position, and even our tight ends played, I thought, outstanding. Luke Bracey, Kyle Morgan, and then we had a couple young guys step in and play. But we're very explosive offensively if we can all play together.
Is this as dominating a performance as you've been a part of?
Yeah, I haven't seen this one before. 700 yards, that's a lot of yards, man. And whether it was run or pass or whatever, Coach Leone and the offensive staff, I thought did a great job throughout the week with the preparation of it. We had a good field because a couple of those defensive guys were on staff here. And, it's kind of all the same tree when you look at it. So from what Coach Leone and his offensive staff said and what we had kind of done in past years, we just kind of put it together and let the guys play. And there was no pressure on our guys. They just went out there and played well. So, but yeah, to answer your question, man, that's 760 some yards or 745. That's a big day.
Coach, you mentioned Mosley. Can you talk a little bit about like what he was able to do this past Saturday? I mean, and watch him develop. I know you always talk about recruiting high school kids and watching them develop in the program. Can you just talk about his development and how he waited to his turn and how it's paying off for him?
Um, I mean, I can't say enough about Mosley and a lot of guys in our program. And, we talk about being great, and B, it starts with belief. And when those guys believe in their coaches and believe in the program and believe in our plan and our vision, you have a chance. And, Mosley, he sat on the bench a long time, man. Mosley just needed opportunity. And sometimes I've been kicking myself over this past off season and saying, God, this kid should have had more reps, should have more playing time. There should have been a package two in there for him. But, he was patient and he waited his turns like Walker Harris waited his turn and his receivers waited their turn. So they were patient, stayed the course, and now you see the fruits of his labor playing off.
On that note, Coach Oliver, can you speak to, this day of, NIL transfer portal? You've certainly made your feelings known about that, but these are two guys that have stayed in the program that are making major contributions. I think this is at least Walker's fifth year in the program, if not sixth. If you recruited him in 2020, it would make his sixth year. So and not just those guys, you got a bunch of guys that have stayed in the program, and now you all are having a lot of success. But those two guys in particular being part and staying and being part of the program.
Right. And again, I think it's about the culture. When they, I think a lot of it is about, treating people the right way. And we I'm gonna be hard on the guys and we're gonna talk, but we're gonna be fair. We're gonna try to treat them right and give them everything we can give them. And they know that we genuinely care about them. And as a coach, we're not gonna cut corners. We're gonna do things the right way, and the culture is the culture here. But I think like when you genuinely care about people and just treat them the right way, they're more apt to stay. Now, a couple of these guys that left were offered a whole lot of money, and I don't blame them for that. I understand. And obviously, as a program here, we're trying to do things to help compensate our young men, and we had to have a plan with it, and we're working the plan. So, you all will see a campaign going out today. As a matter of fact, a fundraiser, and that will work to help these guys with NILs and things of that nature. So, all you on social media, check out a campaign we got going on. You can go ahead and give, and so we can put a little bit of money in these guys' pockets. But the thing I love most is like these kids love football. These guys really love football, and it's not about the money. Now, I told somebody the other day, it's like dating. You take a female out for the first time, and the first thing come out of her mouth is money. That's not the one for me. So I want people that love football, and that's what it's all about here. But I'm so appreciative to our guys that have stayed locked into the program and just believe in our vision and what we had going here.
Coach, I have one more question. This was actually about Thomas Johnson. This past week, Thomas has recorded a sack almost every game except this last game. Can you talk about with him being on the field, how did he change the ways the offense kind of run the ball because of his ability to get in the backfield and at the quarterback?
Definitely. And, obviously, first thing when we start breaking down field early in the week is like, people say a lot of times talk about X's and O's, about Mo's and Joe's. So, like, you have to account for the best players on another team. If it's an offensive player, you got to figure out how to limit their possessions, their touches, and or their yards. If it's a great defensive player, do we run away from them? Do we leave a running back in or tight end to help the tackle, block? So, he's going to be one of those guys that people need to account for. If not, he's going to be in your backfield all day. And his approach to the game has really changed. And I think Coach Cross has done a great job developing him as well as the rest of our defensive line. But he's a blessing to have on the team. I'm glad we don't have to prepare for him in the following weeks.
All right, Coach, are there any other questions for Coach at this time? Seeing none, Coach, will give you the last word. Anything you want to share that you didn't speak about?
Again, it was great matchup this week, man, and enjoy all the fans that came out. Again, if you all would, please support us with our campaign. And I got to give a shout out to Coach Claiborne, my linebacker coach. The family here just welcomed in a new baby girl this morning, Crimson Claiborne. So we're excited to the new addition to the family. I hope his wife recovers quickly in the hospital. And Coach, we can't wait for you to get back to work. We got some game planning to do.
All right, this time we're glad to have our office coordinator, Coach Leone. Coach, I'll give you the first question. Coach, 744 yards total offense. I mean, I know if I would have told you last week at this time that, hey, I think you guys have over 700 yards total offense, what would you have said?
I would have been just as surprised as anybody else. That's a lot of yards. We always knew we had the big play potential and the weapons on offense, but to have that many yards in the game is really crazy to think about.
You know, Coach, you guys ran 74 offensive plays. It was a really balanced type between the balance and the run. What was the thought process going into the game? Do you kind of let the game kind of come to you and you see what the defense is going, or do you first script out a couple plays?
Yeah, we always have opening 15. And lot of times that opening 15 is plays that we feel really good about, really confident going into the game, things that we feel like we could take advantage of, or it's things that we want to see how they're going to play certain formations, and give us an idea how we want to attack it going deeper into the game. So it's a mixture of things that we feel like we could take advantage of, as well as seeing how they're going to play us. But we felt good going into the game. We knew we strived to be balanced, but it all starts with our ability to run the football. Every game plan, every time we prepare for an opponent, that's where we start. We believe in running football here at North Carolina Central, and then building everything off the run game.
You know, Coach, you've seen Walker develop firsthand as quarterbacks coach. Can you talk about his development? I mean, he waited behind Davis, waited his turn, and like it was said earlier, he had over 300 yards passing last two games. He's coming into his own this season. Can you just talk about his play and what you've seen?
Sure. He's really starting to play very confident, and you love to see that in any player. Very proud of his development, and like was mentioned before, just him being patient, waiting his time, sitting behind a really good one in Davius Richard, and knowing that his time would be coming as long as he continued to work and get better. One thing that he always did is he prepared like a starter, even when he knew he wasn't playing, and he was sitting behind Davius, so that when his opportunity came, he was ready for it. And really what he's done well, especially the last 2 weeks, is he hasn't pressed. He's allowed the game to come to him. He's taken advantage of just some free access throws, taking advantage of what the defense is giving him. And he's done a really good job of distributing the ball, not locking on to a single target or single receiver. And that's evident in how many guys are touching the football. So as long as he continues to do that, he's going to continue to play well.
Coach, one of the things I noticed coach talked about a run game. I mean, you had two running backs with one with 12 carries, one with 11 carries, both over 100 yards. I mean, you have to be happy about that as offense coordinator, knowing that you have the ability to kind of hand the ball off and run the ball that well.
Yeah, no doubt. And it starts up front. Offensive line coach, Vikander Diodone, does a really good job with those guys. And then the tight ends are a big part in our run game, and Coach Spencer does a really good job with the tight ends. We felt like there was some matchups that we could win up front, as well as when you got weapons like Christian Mosley, and then you have a downhill runner like AJ Rogers. Just make sure they get their touches, and we're assignment sound. We knew we could have a big day in the run game.
Was the game plan coming into the game against A&T to try to get the ball into Mosley's hands as much as possible? And then also, you know, can you speak to, we know he can run the football, but it's also his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, definitely the game plan was to get the ball to Mosley, and how many different ways could we get the ball to him in the run game, as well as you mentioned, in the passing game. That's one area where I feel like Mosley has really improved, is his ability in the passing game, not only running routes and getting open and catching the football, but also even in the protections. You know, some things that you see that he's doing without the ball in his hands, he's really improved there. So just proud of his overall development. And when you have a weapon like Christian Mosley, you know, you got a game plan to make sure he gets touches in several different ways. And I thought he did a good job executing when the opportunities came his way.
Coach, looking ahead to the upcoming week against East Texas A&M, a team you never faced before. Obviously, the first two games played SMU and then Florida State. Would it be kind of hard to kind of see exactly what they do, but then they played Grambling this past week. Does it give you, what issues does that kind of present as offense coordinator, kind of like how do you script out your plays for this upcoming week?
Yeah, there's some challenges there, just in the fact that you know, their first two opponents are ranked opponents in the FBS. I mean, good programs, and so there's some challenges trying to figure out exactly who they are. But you know, you just go based off of what you see on tape, try to figure out what their base defense is. You try to match personnel as best as possible, and then at the end of the day, it's about what we do. And we got to do what we do, and It's as long as we're doing that and executing, it's about us. So just try to figure out who they are in base situations, who they are in third down, red zone, which their pressure packages look like, and then from there it's about what we do.
Coach, ESPN's college football final honored Chris Mosley on their show with the traditional, at the end of the show, helmet sticker, which they rarely ever do for an FCS player or one from an HBCU. Is there a sense of pride from the entire offensive unit when you see that kind of free publicity, or is it just something you could care less about?
No, it definitely, the whole unit takes pride in that, because in football it takes everybody. Although Christian Mosley had a tremendous day, and especially statistically, and but without the offensive line and without the other 10 guys on the field, it's hard to get anything done. So it's a collective group, so everybody takes pride in that. And then we're very proud, obviously, of the day that Christian Mosley had. And anytime any of your players get recognized on the national stage, and like you mentioned, not many FCS players get recognized on that helmet sticker deal, or even HBCU players. So to have that opportunity to be recognized and to see that your work has been seen not only in the HBCU world but across the country, that's something to be proud of.
Is that a future recruiting tool?
Oh, without question, without question. When you have players and your team being recognized on a national stage, that's definitely something that will grab recruits' attention.
At this time, we're glad to have a defense coordinator, Coach Thompson. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir.
Coach, first question is similar to what I asked Coach Leone. After watching A&T against Hampton week prior and the way they ran the ball, if I'd have told you like your defense is going to hold them to 42 yards rushing, would you believe me?
I don't know, be honest. But the mission was going into the game was to stop the run. That's what they came in the game doing. Our mission was to stop the run. And on Friday night, we made a big emphasis of it, especially in our last meeting. Showed the old school fight, Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. And the mission and the thought process was to come out swinging. And that was the mission, come out swinging. And we said we're going to swing for 60 minutes.
Well, Coach, I'll say you accomplished it. And at the end of the first quarter, I don't know if you realize this or not, but A&T had no yards rushing, no yards at all. They had 0 yards, negative, positive. They had 0 yards. Thinking about that, can you just talk about the game plan? I mean, obviously you want to come out swinging, but to kind of like accomplish that feat in the game where you hold the team to like just 42 yards rushing, you have to be pretty proud about that as a defense coordinator.
Yep, I don't know if I've ever been a part of a unit holding someone that few rushing yards. But the guys, that was on the players and the assistant coaches. The players made the plays and the coaches got them ready. I really can't take credit for that. The players did it and the assistant coaches got their guys ready to go.
So the last 2 weeks, the defense has held two teams, Fayetteville State and North Carolina A&T, under 300 yards total offense. You have to be pretty proud about that feat. What is the like game plan? We obviously trying to go in and win a game and hold the team to the less yards as possible. Like, what do you attribute that to?
Emphasis in practice, man. We were a little more aggressive, especially with Fayetteville State. Our players play better when we're pressuring people. That's kind of their mindset and their mentality to go hunt. And so that's on me to put them in those positions to where they can do that to match their personality. So our guys play faster and better when we're out there pressuring people and moving the front. So that's on me as a play caller, get them ready and give them what they want. They ask for it, and so they play better, But the game plan piece, man, it's a collective thing. It's not just me. It's the assistant coaches, Coach Cross, Coach Clay, Coach Sewell, Coach Simmons, the graduate assistants inputting. I'll never take credit for it, but it's a collective thing, man, and proud of the players. They buy into what we preach, and every day we preach stopping the run, limiting explosives, and taking the ball away.
Well, coach, as a DB's coach, you had two interceptions. Well, it was a possible out there that I thought we were gonna get for a pick six, but that
Man.
was right there for us to take. Can you talk about? I was I'm rarely on the field, but I happened to be on the field and watched the interception that Ant Fisher got there. Can you talk about that play from your vantage point? I know I was at the back of the end behind him, and I saw it happen. I was just amazed by kind of going up and getting that ball. Can you talk about how that just kind of like fueled that team in that third quarter?
All right, you talk about plays coming to you and making a play. That was a play. That's a DB making a play. Because the coverage we were playing, now he'll come off on the short out, but that out was about 10 to 12. He played great vision, had cover number one vertical, him and the safety on the same page. So they communicated. That was just a good defensive play. Seeing a guy play with great eyes, which as a defensive player, you got to play with great eyes, and seeing it and going and high pointing the ball at the highest point. That was just a guy making a play. And that's the big difference between letting the play come to me. That cat made a great defensive play.
Oftentimes we talk about football, the game is won and lost in the trenches. I mean, we had 10 tackles for a loss and 5 sacks. And obviously, I asked Coach about Thomas. Can you just talk about that D line and the impact and how they imposed their will this past week?
Man, that's one of my favorite groups. As a DB guy, I love the D line, especially as a coordinator. I love the D line. I go speak to them probably before I go speak to the defensive backs and stretch lines. But that group, man, I've told them ever since I got the position, we're gonna go as you guys go. So and they've taken that mantra, man. They practice hard, which is why they play hard. And I'm a firm believer in this game. You know, just like life, you reap what you sow. And the reason we've had kind of the success we've had in the previous weeks is because of that group. And it's not just the first group; it's the guys behind that first group. When we get off the bus, we have a good, solid 10, 12 guys that I have no reservations. When Coach Cross said, "Hey, I'm putting this group in," not one time in the previous 5 weeks have I said, "Hey, let's not put that guy in." Coach Cross does a great job getting that group ready. Those guys are coachable. They embrace the coaching. They embrace what we're preaching on defense. And also they got great personalities. There are days I want to fight Thomas in practice because he'll come up and I've had to learn how to sink my weight and lock out my hips on him because he'll come up and try to punch me in the chest with his hands like I'm an offensive lineman. So I've had to shoot my hands back. And the other day he was like, "Oh, you were ready." Yeah. So Thomas keeps me on my toes.
Coach, from your standpoint, one of the players that I saw play that I thought played some quality time for me from watching the game was Aiden Davis. Can you talk about the player, Aiden? I mean, he was getting after him on Saturday. I don't know what got into him, but he was really getting after him on Saturday. Can you just talk about his play just a little bit?
Man, I'm so proud of that young kid, man. Played offense in high school, first time playing defense when he got here. So it's a little bit different. He learning how to backpedal last year, still learning a little bit. And then he actually started against Fayetteville State to tell a freshman on a Thursday, or excuse me, Wednesday, that he's starting, and for him to go out there and play as well as he did against Fayetteville State. And then it was one of those series in the second half. He's running down there on kickoff away from the locker room, and he hits a guy like on inside the 20 and like didn't break stride, ran through near leg, near shoulder, and it echoed throughout the stadium. And that defense went out there and got a 3-and-out. So he ignited the spark right there on that series. And man, just to see that kid go in there, he gets a third down stop on a 3rd and 7, gets a PBU. Then we blitz him. He gets a half a sack. Just to see that kid, and he's loving it. He's a great kid, great student. He's a young father. Had a baby back in March and finished the semester with a 4.0. And you talk about the character and the makeup of a kid. I don't know if you can find a better one.
Just looking ahead to East Texas A&M, same thing, kind of like what I asked Coach Leone. When you're prepping for a team that you haven't seen a lot about, obviously they played SMU, Florida State, but this past weekend they played Grambling. How much can you see on film? How much did they show on film in the first 2 games versus what they might have showed against Grambling, since it was a much tighter game and something they had to really kind of battle to win? Battle at the end to lose.
I think at the end of the day, people are going to be what they are. It's not like they're going to have a different playbook for SMU and Florida State. You got to do what you're good at. They got good players.
So really didn't see a lot of difference. Obviously, in the Florida State game, they threw the ball a little bit more to try to get back in the game. But they are what they are. They got good players. Um, we just got to go do our job, stop what they do best and most often.
Thomas, can you talk about the play of the defense this past weekend at North Carolina A&T? I mean, you guys held them. I just talked to coach. So like the last two games, under 300 yards total offense for favor State and A&T. Can you just talk about defensively? What do you guys like? What are you guys are doing?
First off, I want to start by giving all glory to God. And the biggest thing as far is our preparation, the weeks of practice. We have stepped it up for our effort and communication and our intent with everything we do. And yeah, that's just our practice habits. Stepped it up because we don't like losing here at all.
Can you talk about being able to hold North Carolina A&T to just 42 yards rushing? I don't think people understand how big of a deal that is to hold a FCS team to just 42 yards rushing when they had such a great job rushing last week. I mean, just 42 yards. Can you talk about that a little bit as a defensive lineman?
Yeah, that put a smile on our face. We actually told our coach we need a little cookout. You know, uh, 42 yards rushing though, that's a big accomplishment, but that is now the standard of our room. That is the standard. So as big as you may think it is, be prepared to get that every week.
So tell us how you ended up at NCCU from out in Cali.
The whole little thing was weird to me. First of all, I've never heard of North Carolina Central prior to me coming here, but I was preparing to go to JUCO, Long Beach City College. They had just fitted me for my helmet and shoulder pads. And I got a call from Coach Maurice. He's no longer here. But he called me on like Tuesday. They're like, hey, we in the middle of our season. We need you. Be up here by Sunday and you got a full scholarship. And made a few calls, got a plane ticket. And I was up here. And this was in the middle of the season. They just got done playing A&T in the Panther Stadium. Yeah, it's kind of odd situation, but yeah.
No, that's good. And then I mean, look, it seems like you're becoming like a sack master. I mean, you go from your first season, a sack and a half, to 2 sacks to 4 sacks last season, up to now 5.5 when you only played 5 games. You speak to like, I mean, I know you're a football player, but speak to how you've, kind of worked on your craft in terms of getting to the quarterback.
Just focusing on the little things as far as pass rush. Your step through, taking your shoulder away, reducing your surface, winning with your hands, focusing on the little things. Because I knew I had the instinct. See, that's the thing about football. You can be a good football player. If you don't got that instinct for it, it's going to be hard to teach that. But I knew I had the instinct to pass rush. It just took a lot of development to get me to this point. But it's still a lot to work on.
And then being, as I mentioned, I mean, you're a football player, so being a complete football player, because I mean, if I look at these numbers, I mean, you've got 25 tackles in 5 games, 16 of those are solo, 7 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. You've defended a pass, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. I mean, for some, particularly if you're playing, I don't know, if it's end or edge rusher, whatever you want to call it, that's a good season. That's a good season for someone who's played 12 games, and you got all those numbers having only played 5.
That's one of the most important things I focused on when I first got here was just doing my job. Like I said, I came here in the middle of the season. I didn't have much technique, but I knew exactly what gap I had. So as far as staying in my gap and doing my job, doing your job, a lot of plays are going to come to you. And after that, it's just processing faster. For example, a play action pass, transferring from run to pass, and just processing that faster and doing things like that, knowing where you got to be and how you're going to get there. And also prior to the snap, knowing what you can get out of this formation and what can happen to you and how you're going to defeat it and how you're going to make the play before it even happens.
And I guess last thought, going back to the how you ended up at North Carolina Central, and I asked, Coach Oliver this earlier in terms of players staying where we are with the transfer portal, NIL, and all of those things. What I mean, Had you, because like you said, it happened early in the season. They said, "Hey, we need you."
Yes, sir.
Did you think this was going to be something permanent in terms of staying at Central? Did you have any thoughts ever about going back on? And I mean, I really mean that first year, not now, but I mean that first year. Did you think this was going to be something permanent, or you said, "Okay, well, let's see how it goes, and then maybe I'll go back to Cali"?
Well, actually, at first, I thought they were lying to me, and there was not going to be a school out here, and I, I didn't know what I was stepping into
Okay.
when I first got here. But when I first got here, I loved the environment, the culture. I felt it as soon as I got here that they want you to develop and become a man.
Do you set any kind of like each game? Do you have like something that you're trying to achieve, a goal for yourself for each game?
Each game, I honestly just go out there and try to get whatever God has for me. Really a blessing, but I do have a end of the season goal, but every game, no.
But what's that goal for the end of the season?
I want to win the Buck Buchanan Award.
Well, Thomas, I want to wish you all the luck with that. If they're seeing that there are no more questions for you, I definitely want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Go Eagles.